Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Pelvis. I'm Laura Haraka, a somatic practitioner, breathwork facilitator, and someone who's been on the healing journey myself. I know what it's like to live with chronic symptoms and feel disconnected from your body, and I also know how powerful it can be when we start to listen, slow down, and heal from the inside out. On this podcast, we talk about the mind-body connection, nervous system healing, pelvic health, and all the messy, beautiful layers that come within learning to trust your body again. Whether you're brand new to this work or deep in your process, I'm so glad you're here. So let's dive in. So hello, everyone. My name is Laura Haraka, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Pelvis. And today I am truly honored to welcome Rachel to the show. Rachel is one of my former clients whose journey through chronic pelvic pain and healing is deeply inspiring. She went from living in constant fear of flares and limitations to embracing freedom and trust in her body. I can't wait for you to hear how she found her way from pain into possibility. So welcome, Rachel, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Laura. Very excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. So why don't we start out and you just share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Rachel. I am 27 years old. I live in San Francisco. And I figured when I came in here, I'd give a bit of background about myself that's going to feed in nicely to my overall story. And I wanted to be completely transparent and talk about my experience with anxiety. I have dealt with anxiety for as long as I can remember, and I would absolutely consider myself a recovering control freak. I know you know that, Laura.
Yeah.
And with that mentality of control freak, you need to control everything. It usually comes with that sense of never feeling good enough, never smart enough, pretty enough, doing enough, etc. And the way of controlling my anxiety for me was to harness all of that anxious energy into being an exceptionally type A person. So controlling everything that I possibly can. Everything had to be constantly clean. I never had a crumb on my kitchen counter. I had an action plan for everything in my life. I was constantly pushing myself to achieve at work and school. My life really just revolved around a never-ending list of to-dos.
And oh my God, that's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself.
It certainly is. So I'm recovering from that tendency. And throughout my TMS journey, I discovered the connection between these type A personality traits and the likelihood of having chronic pain. And that just really clicked for me. It made a lot of sense to me. It's like I'm the poster child for TMS.
We all are, right?
Absolutely.
So it sounded like your brain was kind of primed for having some type of pelvic pain condition. So can you tell us a little bit about when your symptoms first began and what they were like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 24, I was on a trip to New York and I suddenly felt like I had a UTI. I've had UTIs before. And in fact, I actually had chronic UTIs as a child. So I knew what that pain felt like. I knew I had a UTI. And once I got back from my trip from New York, I went to a doctor, presuming, okay, I have a UTI. I want to go get tested, get some antibiotics. But it came back negative. And so at that point, they did a screening for literally everything under the sun. And again, it came back clear. I think that's a really common starting place for a lot of people who are going through this pelvic pain journey. And so naturally,
and as you know, that was the same thing that happened to me in my story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And naturally, when we get those surprise results, we all start searching up Dr. Google, UTI, but coming back negative. And I started coming up with all of the theories of what must be wrong with me. I thought I could have an embedded UTI. I thought I might have interstitial cystitis. And again, as you know, both of those conditions are very difficult to diagnose. And essentially, you're just told there's no cure. And that was that was awful. That sent me
Yeah.
into an absolute spiral of fear, of course.
Right.
And
You're a young girl and you just got diagnosed with something that was going to affect your entire life forever.
exactly, exactly.
Or that's what you were told.
Exactly. I felt like at 24 years old, my life was completely over. And so for the next year, no one could really tell me why I was in so much pain. I went from doctor to doctor. I went to urgent care many, many times, emergency room visits, essentially only to be told, good luck. Here's a referral to a different type of doctor. And by the way, it's a 2-month wait list. So, good luck. That became just an endless cycle of 10 plus unhelpful doctors and
Mhm.
essentially just thousands of dollars in medical bills and treatments. I did it all. I saw every type of doctor, different types of doctors. I was completely emotionally defeated, anxiety ridden. And the worst part was my pain increasingly got worse over time. I got new symptoms. So I had urgency, frequency, and the level of pain itself was more intense. And because of that, it really just became my whole life. My pain occupied my mind entirely 24/7. And of course, with no answers, my brain just went to the worst place. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. There's nothing I can do. My life is over at 24. And of course,
Mhm.
with every test and scan they're running coming back normal, I was only ever given diagnoses of exclusion because they couldn't find anything anatomically wrong. So things like interstitial cystitis, vulvodynia, pelvic floor dysfunction. I even got a diagnosis for fibromyalgia at one point, and it was just completely devastating.
Can see, and I could see that being really frustrating too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, on top of being this naturally type A kind of person, at the time that my pain started, I was constantly working, thinking about work, dreaming about work. It never ended. So on top of having a full-time job that was probably more than a full-time job, I was also getting my master's degree and I never really had a brain break ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And particularly when I was on that trip to New York, it was just it was a time of really high stress for me. I was
Right.
not only stressed out with work and finishing my master's degree, I was in a failing relationship with a guy that I had been on and off with for years. And that left me mostly alone in New York that week. I was, unfortunately, I had a somewhat traumatic encounter during this trip to New York where I felt out of control of my own body. And
Mhm.
I think this is another really common starting place for women with chronic pelvic pain is that the start of their pain coincided with a traumatic or a sexually traumatic event. At that time, I didn't actually consider it to be a full on traumatic experience. But the difference is that my brain and my body interpreted it as a traumatic event. And what I came
Right.
to learn, especially when I started working with you, Laura, was that essentially triggered my chronic pain. I think that that stressful event was really just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just curious, even before we started working together, were there any protocols that you put in place due to all these diagnoses? Like, I'm just curious if you had a special diet or you were doing
Mhm.
PT or certain exercises.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did everything. I was
Hmm.
doing PT, spending over $200 on each session, and I think at some point, I did feel that the PT helped a little bit. I had a really really understanding pelvic floor physical therapist, and she was a great outlet for me to talk through what I was going through. So I felt like at the time, okay, this is maybe making a little bit of progress, but I didn't feel like I was healed. I did
Right.
absolutely everything. Special diet, cut out all of the things that would trigger interstitial cystitis. I was given lots of medications, oral medications, creams, everything under the sun. I feel like I tried. And like I said, I spent, I think it was over $15,000 ultimately. And by the way, I was 24 at the time. So, this was a lot of money to
Yeah.
anybody. But especially to me at 24 years old. So I think I really tried everything under the sun, from creams, medications, pelvic floor physical therapy, diets, even pelvic floor Botox, which again is
Uh-huh.
another really expensive thing that unfortunately did not work for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of desperation to get better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was desperate to try anything.
And when we look back, there was a lot of things happening in your life right before these symptoms started, right? There was the relationship, there was school, work, family. Is there anything else that was happening before?
Oh my gosh. I was reflecting last night as I prepared for this interview, and I'm like, that was like, and to me, my body was operating on autopilot. So I just thought like that was like my normal stress level, right? That was like, I'm stressed out all the time. And that's completely normal for me. And I think that the experience that I had in New York, just like I said, was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like I was operating at such a level that my body just had enough. That was it. That was it. And I think that when I trace back to what I was experiencing during that time, that is what I ultimately attribute to what started my chronic pain.
Too much stress, right?
Yep, exactly.
Too much stress. So I'm curious, at what point did you begin to realize that this might not be physical, that this could be a mind body condition?
Mhm. So I would notice that my pain level and my symptoms would change from day to day.
Mm.
And when I started tracking day to day what the symptoms and the pain would look like, because I was asked by doctors to do that, um, I started noticing that it often depended on my mood, what I was doing, and what my stress level was. And I think I had initially heard of the concept of TMS initially through someone talking about it on Reddit.
Mhm.
And I think when you're desperate, you'll try anything, right? And I was desperate.
Mm.
And if you had told me 3 years ago that my chronic pain was stemming from repressing my negative emotions, I would have thought you were absolutely insane. And I did think it was insane. I was reading these testimonials of people online and watching videos. I think I even watched your video.
Mhm.
And I thought, this has to be a scam. It's like this just
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it could be real. But I am living proof that this works. I just really
Right.
needed to understand the science behind what causes pain so that I could understand this isn't just some crazy theory. It's actually science.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not all woo woo, right? It
Yes.
definitely isn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of science backed research behind this work.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of curious. You said you started compiling evidence, but you were still thought that this can't be real.
Mhm.
So when did you make that jump, even, to contact me? What made you say, I'm going to find out about this?
Yeah. So after I learned about what TMS was, I was intrigued. I was desperate, and willing to try anything else because I tried everything else under the sun. And I read the book called Unlearn Your Pain by Howard Schubiner. And
Mhm.
I just connected with every single line. I had read some other books on TMS, but this was the one that just absolutely solidified it for me. I remember crying in my bed and just thinking, wow, like this is me. And I finally, the way that the book was written, it it laid out brain science in a way that is understandable to anybody. And I finally understood the science behind what creates pain and the
Yeah.
power of pain reprocessing therapy, like how that actually works. And that's what I needed to be able to be convinced of, okay, this is real. This is something that I absolutely connect with and feel like this is something I could have. And soon after, I reached out to you. I think I had
Mhm.
initially found your name again through a Reddit thread, and Reddit
Mhm.
was like my best friend and also my worst friend through this journey.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I was obsessed with the various posts and subgroups of people who had stories similar to me. Unfortunately, though, it really only ultimately reinforced my fear that I had something physically wrong with me, that it was rare and incurable. Because when you're on these forums, it's all the people who are currently experiencing the pain, right? The people who have moved on with their lives or solved this issue are no longer there. I'm no longer there. I deleted my Reddit account completely. I deleted the app off my phone. And that was the biggest gift I could have ever given myself. I'm so glad that I ended up doing that. But essentially, when you're on those online forums, they can be really skewed. And for that reason, it can be dangerous. But one good thing is that I found you, Laura. And when I started working with you, I felt I 100% knew that the cause of my pain was TMS. And I'm just forever grateful that I saw your name and reached out and started working with you.
I'm honored that I was able to help you, but you're really the one that took all the tools and practiced them and applied them. So, in our work together, can you describe a little maybe what that was like, what felt helpful as in
Hmm.
regards to your journey?
Sure. So I think at the beginning, what I really needed was someone to reassure me that this was mind body related. And so, for over a year, I had this just deeply ingrained in my mind that there was something physically wrong with me. And that, because of that, my nervous system was just on high alert all the time. It's all I thought about. And I think it was the first discovery call that we had. And I told you a bit about my story, and you told me, yeah, this is TMS. And I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that I wasn't going crazy. Recovery was possible. And especially because I had heard the opposite from a dozen well intentioned doctors over that past year, that I might very well live with this pain forever. And I just wasn't, I couldn't accept that. And I think it was the same day I actually got out my journal and I wrote this quote on the inside of the cover of it. And I wanted to read it because it was a big part of my journey.
Oh, wow. Can't wait to hear it.
I have this dated as January 30th, 2024. And this is what it says. From this day forward, I am no longer going to feed these fears. I'm no longer going to wrestle with them back and forth and upset myself. I'm no longer going to run to Google or Reddit to search my symptoms. Life is too short, and I promise myself that I will no longer continue to torture myself in this way. I have mind body syndrome, and I'm dedicated to my belief and healing from my pain. And I signed my name. And anytime that I would doubt myself, I would open up that journal to the inside cover and I would read that commitment out loud to myself and repeat it to myself in my head. And I think that that helped me stop some of the bad behaviors of ruminating about my symptoms and feel hope that I was going to get through this. So I think that was a big piece for me that really helped convince me and solidify my belief that this was TMS.
And now I'm going to put you on the spot. When you read that to me now, what do you notice in your body?
Oh my goodness.
I know we
I
haven't done this in a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So something that is common for me is I feel like I'm going to choke up, right? Like I feel it in my neck. I feel a little bit hot in my chest. And, because I'm reflecting on such a exceptionally difficult time in my life that I didn't know that I was going to get out of.
Yeah.
It's hard to read it back and reflect on how I was at that point and how depressed and anxious I was. But it's also really empowering because I did exactly what I committed myself to do.
Mhm.
And I got through it.
Well, I'll tell you what that was courage. You took that first step. And in this work, you know, confidence comes over time. And but we need to take the courage to start moving forward. And you made a very empowering statement to yourself. It's almost like you took charge. It's like you're driving the car, not the symptoms at this point, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the biggest piece, or the maybe the most helpful part of working with you, Laura, was essentially convincing myself, like you had me write down all of the evidence that this was TMS. And then I would go back whenever I would doubt that it was TMS, or I'd have a slip and I Google a symptom and I think, oh, well, maybe it is something wrong with me physically. I'd go back into that part of the journal where I written down the evidence of why this was clearly TMS. And I'd remind myself, and that would calm
Mhm.
my nervous system and say, okay, it's okay. I'm going to get through this. And that was happening in the beginning a lot where I
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
going, teetering back and forth. And so one of the other really helpful things was utilizing your breathing exercises. So
Mm.
ocean breath was a big one for me that I really liked. Somatic tracking, all of those exercises were really, really helpful to helping me just calm my nervous system on the daily. Because when you are just in this, your nervous system is in a constant heightened state, you feel like you're just always walking on a tightrope. And just one minor stressful trigger to a person that is already in that heightened state can send them into a spiral. And that doesn't, it might not necessarily feel proportionate to what the trigger is. But that's because my body was in such a heightened state all the time. And what this journey taught me is that I got to understand that it was due to the way that my body responded to stressful stimuli, which is different than maybe someone who's not always in that heightened state.
Right, yeah. So, I'm just curious, what did your day-to-day look like in the healing journey? Did you
Ooh.
do breath work all day? Did you do somatics all day? Was it just a portion of your
Yeah.
day? What did it look like?
Yeah, I think in the beginning I was, so determined and absolutely obsessed to like heal myself. So I was doing everything that I possibly could, all of the worksheets and exercises that you had given me. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, which is not unusual for for me, and I know myself quite well now, especially through this journey. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I need to wake up. I got to do my breathing exercises, and then I got to journal, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I realized I was kind of actually stressing myself out more by feeling like I had,
Mhm.
again, a never-ending list of to-dos on top of my regular day to day. And so I think we had talked about it. Maybe it was 3 or 4 sessions in, and I was like, obsessed with getting better and feeling like I had to do every single thing that you had given to me all the time. And you had given me some advice and said, you have to be patient with yourself, and you're stressing yourself out more by feeling like you need to get this, and this done, right? And so I started taking it easy, I would say, which is not natural to me. It does not come naturally to
Yeah.
me to take it easy. And so I would, start out the morning with, I'd wake up and the first thing I do is, okay, I'm going to do my breathing exercises. And that set my day up for success. I felt like, okay, I'm calmer getting up and going to eat my breakfast and walk my dog and do all these things that normally I would wake up and immediately it's like coffee, walk the dog, eat breakfast, hop on this next meeting. I work from home. So again, like when you work from home, what a blessing it is to be able to do a load of laundry, but you have like no break from or no boundaries from work versus home life. So I think that in some ways being able to work from home was a blessing in this journey, because if I was feeling stressed out, I could finish my meeting, step away, go sit on the couch and do a breathing exercise, which frankly, that wouldn't be nearly as easy if I was working in the cubicle in the office. So a lot of things that I'm grateful for, especially my boss at the time. Of course, she didn't know the full extent of what was going on in my life, but she knew I was going through some very difficult health issues. And she never questioned when I said, I need to go to a therapy appointment. I need to go to physical therapy. I need to go see this doctor. So I got very, very lucky that I had a very supportive work team and work boss at work that really helped me get through this journey and made me feel safe to do the things that I needed to do.
Oop, I lost you. Can you hear me, Rachel?
Oh no.
Can
Yes,
you hear
I
me
can.
now?
I can.
Okay. Perfect. I'm just going to write the timestamp on so my tech person knows where to go back and cut that little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we'll just start now. So it sounds like you slowed down with your life and you started incorporating breathing and possibly some somatic tracking in
Hmm.
there and using an evidence list. And I'm assuming after a certain amount of time, your pain started to decrease.
That's right. Yes. I think, I mean, honestly, it was a bit of a yo-yo, right? Because I would go through periods of, okay, I feel great. And the pain is gone. And that might be, 2 days where I was like, okay, I'm good. And then I would be devastated when the third day came along and then the pain was back. And that's not unusual again, with everything I know about TMS and the healing journey. So I'll say, like, don't be discouraged if you're starting to make progress, but then you feel like there's a step back because your symptoms have popped up. Really just being able to have the tools of checking in with myself, doing my breathing, and whatever other exercises that I felt helpful at the time, and be able to get out of that flare and find indifference in if I was
Mm,
having the symptoms or not.
yeah. And sometimes it's so hard, right, in the beginning find indifference. But
Oh
you
yeah.
definitely did it.
Yes, yeah. And it was a long journey. Like it wasn't it wasn't a week, it wasn't a month, it was several months until I felt like I had consistently good days. And like that's just, you have to be patient with this work.
Mm.
When I was in pain, I felt like I could not make future plans. I stayed up all night because the pain was so bad. I was popping like 15 Advils a day just to like try to get through the pain. And I always had to have an escape plan for whatever social commitment or work plan, whatever it was. And yeah, that was really, really difficult. It was difficult to have to live your life that way, where you don't know what you're going to be feeling like tomorrow or the next week, or be able to commit to something. It was very isolating. I made my life very, very small, and I missed out on a lot. And so I really made a commitment to myself once I started to get better that I was going to make up for the lost time.
I
Um,
remember that.
yeah. Yes. Yeah. And something you had said to me, Laura, was, wow, it sounds like your body was really craving joy again. And I'm like, yeah, that really stuck with me because for a year and a half, essentially, I had no joy in my life. I I was just, constantly in that heightened state, that fear state. Didn't feel like I could commit to things, didn't feel like I could sit, I couldn't walk, I couldn't exercise. And now I'm not scared to do any of those things. I live
Yeah.
my life completely normally without even a thought of my pelvic plane. And that is just such a blessing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what does your life look like now? I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because we talk about this a lot. People don't have to change in order to get better, but I actually did have to change
Hmm.
things that I did in my life. So, do you still put all that pressure on yourself? What does your life look like now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, this whole experience was essentially like a wake up call for how I treat myself. And as terrible as it all was, I'm truly glad that I went through it. Because when you go through something that immensely difficult, you come out the other side with so much gratitude. I am so grateful for my life now. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have in life. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for my friends, my boyfriend, all of these things that I think I took for granted a little bit before. And even the small things in life, like watching the sunset, taking my dog out for walks. I love the apartment that I'm living in, my morning smoothie, whatever it is. Before going through this, I never realized how much there is to be grateful for. And now it's essentially all I think about. So,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
work not only has changed my life in that I now have this full social life and family life that's filled with fun and love and joy, which were things I missed out on for a very long time. Um, it's changed the way that I operate on day to day. It's changed this obsession with being type A. And when you're not in that constant heightened state, your life just feels a lot easier. Like I would say I'm a much less type A person, like in a healthier way. I'm somewhere between the type A and type B. I'm still myself. But when things don't go to plan, I can be adaptable, which was something I didn't really have a lot of skills for before. I can let things roll off my back. And I think another big piece of that is that I'm in a relationship with someone who is so kind and non reactive. That has also helped my nervous system relax because I don't feel on guard all the time. So it's really helped me just be a calmer, better person, make more informed decisions, be less reactive. And I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I just want to say it's not a bad thing either to have a type A personality, right? There's
Totally.
some really great attributes that we get and that help us in life from being type A. It's just when it gets a little out of control sometimes.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. I always say, like my anxiety has pushed me to do great things. I got my master's degree by 24 and had a great job and all of these awesome things that had come into my life because I was, this way. But like you said, it got to the point where it was out of control, where I was hurting myself. And yeah, so through this journey, I got to find a balance.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So if there was one bit of advice or encouragement, maybe it's something you said already and you'd like to say again, or
Mhm.
something different that you would like to give to someone that is listening to who is still struggling.
Yeah. I have a couple pieces of advice. Number one would be don't do anything drastic medically until you've tried the TMS approach. Like I said, I spent $15,000 on medical bills and treatments that did not help me. And I even had a doctor towards the end try to suggest to implant a neuromodular like device into my spine. Oh my God, I am so glad I didn't go through with that because less than a year later, I had healed myself completely through mind body techniques. So I would say that's my first piece of advice.
Love it.
Second is find joy in your life, even when you're in pain. I think that this was one of the biggest things that helped me get through this. It helped me get my mind off of this rumination, the constant rumination of what are my symptoms? What am I feeling? Is it better than yesterday? How is this going to affect my life? Will I be able to work tomorrow? Will I be able to stick to this social commitment, whatever it was? Finding joy even when I was having symptoms was the key for me. And so some advice that you had given me actually was to find a new activity or a hobby. And I know that that was like initially to help create new neural pathways, and that helps to weaken the existing neural pathways that are connected to the pain. And so I started off really small because I was like, I want to do something that feels safe So I got into doing like at home crafting. So I was doing painting, pottery, clay. I was working on like little home projects. And this gave me like a expressive outlet to get my mind thinking about anything else other than the pain, of course. And eventually I was in a place where I felt safe enough to introduce other things back into my life. So things like exercise, hanging out with my friends, even traveling. And I just slowly built my confidence and re-immersed myself back into life through starting with those little activities. So my advice would be to find something that you enjoy doing, and it can be absolutely anything. I know for you it was dancing, and that was like such a joyful, great example. For me, it was a little bit smaller because I was frankly scared to exercise at the beginning, and it blossomed into feeling more confident, doing more and more.
That is fantastic advice. Well, Rachel, I am just so honored that number one, you're here with me to share your story. I think it takes a lot of courage to share your story. And I am so grateful for you allowing me and trusting me to be part of your journey. And I'm so glad that you're not dealing with chronic pain anymore.
Me too, Laura. And I figured something I would share with you just to wrap up this story from start to finish. I had started working with you in January of 2024. And I remember by July of 2024, I was actually back to New York for the first time since my chronic pain started. And I had the time of my life with my friends and family. I remember I didn't feel pain that entire week. And I remember walking through Central Park by myself. I was walking by the lake and it was warm. It was in the summer and it was just starting to rain a little bit. And I felt so incredibly happy and grateful. And I felt like, okay, I have finally come out the other side of this. And I knew I was going to be okay. So thank you for all of your advice and help to get through this, because I couldn't have done it without you. I so appreciate you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you. I supported you with tools, but you did it. You did it. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laura, for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Beyond the Pelvis. If today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to join us inside the Pelvic Healing Circle, a supportive space for deeper healing, connection, and transformation. And if you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you took a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your words help others find this podcast and remind them that healing is possible. Until next time, stay connected to your body, trust your inner wisdom, and keep going beyond the pelvis.